My cell phone doesn't control my life. My cell phone battery, that controls my life. Back Engel, Footwear Star Telegram, Engel Angle Podcast. Thank you for joining me here on the Sunset Lounge. We're going to have two editions of the Engel Angle this week because something happened on Sunday that demanded I share an anecdote that I didn't think I would ever get to share otherwise. Before I mention that, I want to give a shout out to my friends all here on the Sunset Lounge because every one of these shows is free. That includes Shippy and Groobs, free. By the way, all of these shows are available on patreon.com/SunsetLoungeDFW. Patreon.com/SunsetLoungeDFW. All the shows are free. Shippy and Groobs, the Clubhouse featuring Rob, Alex, and Don. Lots to talk about for those guys because we are heating up for the summer movie season. Beer 30 Sports O'Clock. The NFL Draft is coming up in 2 weeks, and I'm sure Ziggy is going, in fact, I know, he's going to be all over that, as well as talking about his real subject of passion, and that is alcohol. Beer. The man's a beer fanatic. Al Maximo, featuring Victor Villaba and Carlos Nava. I ran into Victor the other day at a Dallas Mavericks game, the Luka reunion game, return game, and it was good to see him. I hadn't seen him in a little bit. And I feel for all those guys. Anybody who is working on the broadcast teams of the Dallas Mavericks, including Victor, my heart goes out to those guys because they obviously had nothing to do with that situation. And whether it's Chuck Cooperstein, who calls the radio, or Mark Followill, and Jeff Skin Wade, and Derek Harper, and Victor, all those guys, it's their responsibility to call the games and put the Mavericks, basically in the best foot forward. And that's in a really hard spot for those guys because, like I said, they had nothing to do with that, the fact that Luka Doncic is no part of their team. So shout out to those guys. And as well, of course, as the great Mike Reiner, your dark companion. That show, free. Patreon.com/Sunset Lounge. And be sure to look forward to any and all promotional ties we've got. The Sunset Lounge has with the Frisco Rough Riders this season. They have started this season. As I didn't know if you knew this, we are in baseball season, which means we are also in golf season. On Sunday in Augusta, we had history. I am not a huge golf nut. I enjoy watching some tournaments, but yesterday was pretty significant. And yesterday at Augusta at the Masters was phenomenal theater because it involved Rory McIlroy, a guy who was an absolute prodigy golfer and who had done everything that a golfer could do but win the Masters. He had come close. He had made a ton of money. He had done everything. If his career ended on Saturday afternoon, 2 days ago, you would say that's a Hall of Fame golfer. He's a brilliant golfer. But he just had never had the experience of wearing the green jacket after winning at Augusta on a Sunday. Well, that changed yesterday afternoon when he blew out the field, then collapsed, and then came back to win it on a playoff hole against Justin Rose. It was an absolutely spectacular afternoon of sports, and it's a reminder that sometimes sports can reach in and grab your money in a way that Broadway, Hollywood, any other of the entertainment industries, they try to do the same thing, but none of them can provide the suspenseful punch of a live sporting event. Because when it's done that way, it's better than every other entertainment medium out there. So by winning yesterday, I want to make sure I get this right, by winning yesterday, Rory McIlroy now becomes one of joins 5 other people ever. So there's 6 total in the history of golf to win the career Grand Slam. Every major golf event he has won. British Open, US Open, PGA, and obviously the Masters. He joins a list that is now consists of Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, Gene Sarazen, Ben Hogan. It's quite a list. And Rory McIlroy. That's quite the Mount Rushmore. So I do have a Rory story. Never met him, never interviewed him, but I did get blown off by Rory. And I also got shushed by Rory. One of the cool things about doing this podcast, I, along with every other person on the planet, I do have a place to share some kind of fun anecdotes that otherwise I may have forgotten. As I was watching that yesterday, I thought, oh, that's right, I forgot about that. So I'm going to take you back to 2020. You might remember it. It was COVID. And right around the middle of 2020, the world shut down and every major sporting event closed. So 2 or 3 months later, sports organizations and television networks were scrambling to figure out how to turn the lights back on, how can we have sporting events, and specifically, how can we start generating some revenue again, either for live content, anything. It just so happened that the PGA Tour decided, you know what, let's give it a shot with the Charles Schwab Challenge PGA Tour event at Colonial Country Club in Fort Worth. Now, forever it was known as the Colonial, but as PGA Tour events changed and they just sort of sold themselves out to corporate title sponsorships, it's a long-standing PGA Tour event, and all the parties came together and said, you know what, we're going to be the first one back. Texas obviously had very, very lax protocols and procedures and attitudes for that matter. So they decided, okay, we're going to have a PGA Tour event at Colonial in the middle of March in 2020 with no fans. That was the novelty. That was kind of the novelty of it. And I am probably one of 5 people in the world who was thrilled at this development because I knew, because where I lived, I was going to get access to attend these games and these events where there were no fans. And I thought, this is going to be incredible. I had done the job long enough where kind of the novelty event of attending these events had kind of worn off. I don't want to say I'd taken for granted, although I'm sure I probably had. But I knew when I went to that PGA Tour event at the Charles Schwab Challenge, this was going to be unlike anything I had ever done before and ever will do again. And I took full advantage of all the situations that were created by COVID here in Texas. So I went to a NASCAR race where I was the only one sitting in the stands. That was at Texas Motor Speedway. That was in June of 20, I think. And I knew the general manager of the track, and I said, would you let me in? He's, sure. So I went there. I was the only guy sitting in the stands. We had the World Series there, even though the Texas Rangers weren't playing in it. The Tampa Bay Rays lost to the LA Dodgers in the World Series at Globe Life Mall. I was at that. Now, that one did have fans. That had like 12,000 fans. We had the Rose Bowl. By far and away, that was weird. Watching Alabama play Notre Dame in the Rose Bowl in Arlington, Texas, that was pretty unique. By far and away, of all the COVID stuff I did, the one to me that will, along with the Charles Schwab Challenge, that stands out the most is the the LA Rams opened SoFi Stadium in 2020 with a Sunday night game against the Dallas Cowboys in front of no one. And I covered that game at SoFi Stadium, and it stood out for a couple of different reasons. One, there was no traffic. That was one of the weirdest times ever to be in California because obviously LA is renowned for its hellish traffic, and there was nobody. We drove up to the game, and there's no traffic. You drove right up to the front, basically to the front gate, walked in, you had a mask on, and then you walk into this beautiful new facility that should have been full with fans, and there's hardly anybody there. So I'm in the press box, the game's getting ready to start. I'm in the press box, masked up, socially distanced from colleagues and whatever, and my head is down because I'm looking at my computer. And then I look up, and I see the ball in the air. It was the opening kickoff, and there was no sound. I've never done that. The last time I would have done anything like that would have been at a high school game in front of 50 or 60 people or something like that. And even that had more noise than that NFL game between the Cowboys and the Rams. I did an NBA game with no fans in the stands, a Dallas Mavericks game. I went to a couple of Texas Rangers games where there are no fans in the stands. Those were all unique. But the reason why the Charles Schwab Challenge in 2020 stood out to me is because it was basically a major caliber field at the event. All of those guys convened in that one spot. Now, normally the Charles Schwab Challenge or any of these golf tours, they get some good names, but the majors, The majors get all of them, especially back then before the Live Golf Tour was created. So in 2020, almost all of them came back for that event. Tiger Woods wasn't there, a couple other ones, but for the most part, it was a major field because all of those guys had been trapped at home. They were ready to get out. They were ready to play again. So they went to Fort Worth for the tournament. And the funny part about it was they did have ropes up, like fans would have been there. I don't know why. So on the first day, they had 3 guys playing that I decided to follow the entire 18 holes. And I was the only one following them. There might have been some other person or two, like a golf marshal or something, maybe a CBS or Golf Channel person. But for the most part, it was just me and 1 or 2 other people. And we're behind the ropes, and I could hear almost everything these guys were saying because I'm 8 to 10 feet from them. Now, if the wind picked up or something like that, I couldn't hear them. But on that opening round, I followed the 3 best players in the world at the time. It was Bryson DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka, and Rory McIlroy. And they walked and chatted with each other, talked about families, and they gave each other, if a guy had a nice putt or a nice shot, they gave each other a fist bump or whatever it was. I don't know. I remember a couple of them did have questions about COVID protocols, but it was a really unique experience, and it was obviously very bittersweet because you have this amazing field that this event would not get any more, and it wouldn't have gotten that caliber event for a long time. But you have this amazing field, and there's nobody there. And it did. It led to some extraordinary incidents that I'll never do again. On the Friday, Ricky Fowler, who's a top player, was paired with Jordan Spieth. And what we saw was all these guys hadn't played in months, and their games were affected by the layoff. So you had some of these really top players who were struggling those first 2 days. And Ricky Fowler hit a second or third shot. And I'm standing outside of a tree, on the other side of a tree down the fairway, and I have a pretty good idea where the ball went. And they can't find it. And Jordan Spieth is looking around, and he looks right at me. He's probably 8 feet from me. He says, "Hey, did you see where Ricky's ball went?" And I know where the ball went. I know where it went. And I was so just dumbfounded that this was all happening, because that's never happened to me before, anything like that, where a player or coach looks at me during the game and says, "Hey, can you whatever?" And I said, "Yeah, I went down. It's on the right. It's around the corner on the right." Well, there was one little detail there that I didn't have the heart to tell Jordan, who would have relayed it to Ricky Fowler. The ball went in the water, and I just didn't have it in me to break the bad news. So one other thing that was kind of funny that happened, there was 2 other things that were kind of funny that happened, is that the tournament went to a playoff. And I had been following it on foot the last several hours. So it was between Daniel Berger and Colin Morikawa. And it kind of got to the sense around the 16th hole that it was going to be one of these 2 guys who were in contention to win it. And because it was kind of so lax there, I remember at one point I was with a guy named Pat Doney. Pat Doney's an NBC5 sports anchor in town, great guy. And we're walking around talking, and we're following it. And we go stand right behind the tee box at 15. Maybe it was 16. And it dawns on me, we shouldn't be standing there. And we were clearly in the CBS shot, which they wouldn't want. And I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. I wonder if anybody's going to catch me on this. And sure enough, 10 minutes later, the marshal comes up and says, "Hey guys, can you not stand there? You're not supposed to be back there." Sure, got it. So after the playoff hole starts. And it looks like both of these guys are going to hit par to go to another sudden death hole. So I had to go to the bathroom so badly for the last hour, but I couldn't because I'm running around trying to see what I can see. Because I really did enjoy that, and I was really appreciating the rarity of this moment. The fact that I could walk right next to these guys and listen to conversations and all this other stuff. So I think, okay, I've got enough time. Both these guys are on the green, and they're going to hit par, and then I'll have time to watch the next hole. So I run to the bathroom, go to the bathroom, And as I'm walking out the door, I can see they're celebrating on the green. Daniel Berger has won the playoff because Colin Morikawa lipped out a short putt. I had followed it all 4 days, only to miss the ending because I had to go to the bathroom. And still, as much fun as all these stories were, it's not my favorite. On Sunday, the last day, you had all these big names near the top of the leaderboard. And Bryson DeChambeau, an SMU alum, is near the top. So I think to myself, okay, who am I going to follow? Because you have to kind of pick one or two. And I thought, okay, I'll pick DeChambeau because he's kind of temperamental, especially at that time, and who knows what he might say that I could hear. So I pick him up on 11, the 11th hole. It's a really long par 5, and Bryson DeChambeau is a big, big hitter. Sure enough, he steps up to the tee box, and man, he launches that tee shot to Mars. Surprised it didn't kill somebody on the way. So I'm like, okay, this is a good pick. I got the right guy. Well, sure enough, he blows up in that hole, and he's just dog cussing himself on the green, and as he is walking from the 11th green to the 12th tee box, and he's paired with Rory McIlroy. At that point, Rory was way off the lead and he wasn't in contention. So, okay, I'm not going to walk up to the tee box. I'm going to take a little bit of a shortcut and I'm going to walk right next to the fairway at the 12th hole. There's a rope, so I can't walk. It's not like I can walk over it. I'll certainly honor that. I'm about 100 yards off the tee box and I can see those two guys standing up there. And I take my phone out to film it. I don't think I was supposed to do that at the time, but I didn't know it. And I'm going to take a video of Bryson DeChambeau or Rory blasting their tee shot. Because it's incredible. There's nobody standing anywhere near me. And right over my line of sight, a little bit into the fairway, there's a little bit of a ridge. So DeChambeau stands there, and he backs up, and he does this. Actually, he would have been with his left arm. He did this. I just stand there and filming. And so 8 seconds later, Rory McIlroy does this. So I look behind me. There's nobody. And I'm thinking, is there a marshal or is there somebody over this ridge? I don't know. So I take 10 steps back. Then they go up and hit their tee shot. I was in the way. And I didn't know it. Because I wasn't in the way. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was standing behind the ropes. I was the only person in their line of sight. And that was a distraction. There is no sporting event that honors distractions more than golf. Drives me absolutely crazy that professional performers demand silence before they hit their ball. Whereas baseball, basketball, football, hockey, anything but tennis, all says, we want the noise. Go ahead. You paid for admission. Bring it. Golf says, no, keep it quiet. I really don't like that. So I stand back. They take their tee shots. Now, it's a really hot day. It's the middle of June of 20. And now I go up to the 12th green where both of the players are going to attempt their putts. I'm looking for a tree to stand under because it's so hot. And at that particular hole, there was probably 8 to 10 people. They had some TV types who were standing around the green and maybe a little marshal or two, because it was very exciting for those marshals to be in this event to watch these great players with nobody else there. So I think, okay, I see that tree around the other side of the green. I'll go stand under it and watch these guys attempt their putts. So I'm walking. I will say liberally, I'll be a kind of a liberal estimate. I was 25 yards away from the edge of the green. Not the hole, the edge of the green. And I'm walking around, and I hear, and I keep walking. I think nothing of it. And then I hear, and it's Rory McIlroy standing on the green looking right at me. And now I know what he means, which is to stop moving. I was in his line of sight. And under any other professional golf circumstance, there would be fans, there would be some chatter, just a little bit of faint noise, there would be concessionaires, there would be a whole host of things that would be in his line of sight. But on that day, with nobody else there, I was in the way. So I stopped, sort of marveling in the rarity and absurdity of it all. And Rory McIlroy and Bryson DeChambeau did proceed to make their putts. I don't know if they hit a 4 or 5. It was a most cherished experience. And now it's even more so because Rory McIlroy is a Masters champion.
This is a Stolen Water Media production.